What is up, my friends? Welcome back to another video. And today we are talking strictly about sample libraries. And I've done a couple videos on kind of deciding what sample libraries to get, my personal favorites, and I've given some recommendations for those as well. And today I kind of wanted to have just a candid discussion on what to look for in a sample library before you actually purchase it. There's kind of like five things that I like to think about when investing in my career or in a new tool, and I want to make sure I get the most out of that tool, right? So before we really talk about that, if you are interested in the sample libraries that I currently use and own, then definitely check out the Sample Library Buyer's Guide. It's totally free, and it kind of goes through the libraries that I would personally use on a daily basis. And I've kind of organized it by price and by different sections, like the orchestral sections and all that stuff. So if you are in the market for a new library and you're interested in my thoughts on the best libraries to invest your money in, then that can definitely help you. And a lot of my students have found that very helpful as well. So it's totally free. If you want to check the first link in the box below, it'll take you straight there. Let's kind of jump in and talk about sample libraries and go over those five things that will really influence your decision on whether to buy it or not. The first thing I think you should think about is the sound. Does it sound good to you, right? And the funny thing is your ears don't lie. Like a lot of the times we listen to the demos, right, on developer websites, and while they can sound excellent, right? Like these developers will usually send them out to composers to arrange or compose a demo for that library. What we don't realize a lot of the time is that those demos have actually been dressed up, like with other libraries layered in with that library, and maybe there's some mixing done and processing done, to really make the library reach its fullest potential in that composer's ears. So in a way, listening to those demos is not always an accurate representation of what that library sounds like out of the box. And so usually in the walkthroughs, like on YouTube, the developer will usually put out a video going through the main patches of the library, showing you the raw sound and the playability. That is what you should really look into to make a decision on whether you want to purchase a library or not, is based on the raw out of the box sound. I think a lot of the times we just listen to the demos and we say, oh, that's what that library sounds like right away. And we don't really consider, the processing and the mixing that might have gone into that demo to make it sound the way it does. So that's one easy way to create buyer's remorse, is to buy a library based on some fantastic demos that we hear. We download the library, we open it up, we drag in the patch, and it's like, is this even the same library? That's not what I heard on the website, right? So that's number one, is listen to the sound, trust your ears, go into the actual walkthroughs and raw demos, if there are any, on the developer website, and kind of base your decision off of that. The second thing I want to talk about is price. Obviously, price is something that we all have to consider when investing our money. Is it going to be an expensive purchase? Is it going to be a cheaper purchase? But ultimately, what is the price of that library and how will it fit within your budget, right? So I think for me, the way I see it, there's really two options. If there's like a more affordable library, let's say sub $100, let's say a string library, right? Then it's more likely that you're going to purchase it because it's easier on the wallet, but at the same time, you're not losing out on that much because you're not as financially invested in that purchase. So as a result, you might not even find yourself using that library that much because maybe you don't respect that library as much, if that makes sense. Like usually the higher price a library is, the more work has gone into it, the more a developer has put time and blood, sweat, and tears into that library to make it as good as possible. So let's say you purchased a library that's like $1,000, you better believe that you're going to use that library to its fullest potential, right? Rather than just buying it, downloading it, and shelving it away, right? So depending on the price, you might decide that it's worth it for you. Like let's say it's $300, and you can say, okay, I can justify that with my wallet, but I know that if I download it, I will actually use it because I'm actually financially invested in it. And if it helps me earn my money back in let's say gigs and stuff, or even if I'm just gonna have fun using it, then it's worth it to me, right? So of course, consider the price. That's definitely something that's super important as well. The third thing is the workflow, all right? And this kind of goes back to the walkthrough stuff. So usually if a developer puts out a walkthrough of the library and shows themselves playing it in live, then, you kind of get a sense of whether you think your personal workflow will fit with that library. Will it gel together, right? So for example, when Impact Soundworks, right, is releasing their Tokyo Scoring Strings library, they put out a number of walkthrough videos showing how the interface looks, how the strings sound, right? And then you can kind of see how everything is laid out. So if you're like a tinkerer and you want to go in and kind of change things to your own settings, then let's say you have the option to do that because the GUI actually has the available appropriate knobs to actually do that. Versus maybe an interface that is much more simple, like musical sampling stuff. They usually put out a couple of videos that kind of go through the patches in the context of a fuller piece, and it's a different way to do a walkthrough. But usually when you look at the patches being played, the overall interface is super simple, and so maybe you're a composer who likes to sit and literally just play, and that's where I fall basically. Like I like to drag in a patch and start playing right away. So my type of workflow really gels with the vision of musical sampling, for example, or Vista, right, where there's not too much to fiddle with performance samples, just because the sound is instantly gratifying and the overall library gives me a really good experience. And that's where I base my library investments in most of the time, is do I think I will have a good time? Will I enjoy working with the library once I get it under my fingers? And again, the only way to really realize that is to check out the demos, see if there are reviews of those products online, and just study those to kind of make an informed decision for yourself. So that's number 3, workflow. Number 4 is how much content comes with that library. How deeply sampled is it, right? So we're talking orchestral libraries mainly. So how much actual content are you getting in that library? For example, if it's a string section, is it a fully sampled string orchestra? Are there lots of articulations contributing to the size of the library? Or is it, for example, just a legato only library where you're only going to get sustains and legato for, let's say, $300, you know? That kind of influences the choice of it too, because you know that you're either going to get more of a workhorse, comprehensive library as compared to something that's a little bit more niche and only does one or two things really well. So make sure you look at the product page, really see what it comes with. Most developers are pretty transparent and clear on this. So you want to make sure the details are all worked out in your mind and you know what you're actually getting before you invest in that library. You know, because the worst thing you can do is expect something from a library, like expect it to have a ton of articulations or expect it to have, you know, sections of an orchestra, when in reality it does not come with that, right? And the thing is, as soon as you download the library, in most cases it's non-refundable. So you're going to be stuck with that library for life, and you want to make sure you don't have that situation if you did not do your research, you know? Anyway, that's number 4, is how deeply sampled is it? And number 5, and maybe most importantly, is does it actually do what I need, right? Do I actually need this library? Like, what am I working on right now that could benefit from this library? A lot of the times we're just looking at libraries and we think it might be cool just to have, but unless you have money to burn, that money could be very well spent better somewhere else. So a lot of the times we're just buying just to buy because we're like a kid in a candy store. We see something new, we're like, oh wow, that's gonna make my music better, or it's just gonna make me feel more inspired to write. And while that may be true, if you take a bit of time away, come back to it, and really ask yourself, what does this library do for my music that my current libraries cannot do for my music? Once you can answer that question very honestly and transparently with yourself, I think that will give you all the answers you'll need in order to make a final decision on whether that library is for you or not. So all in all, let me go over these 5 things one more time. Sound, does it sound good? 2, what's the price? Is it more affordable? Is it more expensive? And will you take that purchase seriously? Number 3, does the workflow seem easy to you? Like, do you think you will personally gel with the library in terms of working with it and not feeling frustrated by the technology, for example? Number 4 is the amount of content and how deeply sampled is it? Does it do, or does it come with certain things that maybe you weren't expecting, or does it not come with something? And maybe you just have to be more careful to look over the product page and see what it actually comes with. And finally, does it do what you really need, right? Are you buying it just for the fun of it, or are you buying it truly to improve your music? Because ultimately, when we buy a library, we want to put it to good use, and we don't want to have buyer's remorse, And I think out of all my library purchases, I would say maybe like 60-70% of them I don't even use. And these are libraries that I've purchased like on my first year of starting orchestral music. So naturally I was a little bit more reckless in spending money. I was younger, I was more immature. So, I have a bunch of libraries stored on my hard drive that I'm like, I have a heartache. Like I want to remove them because I know it will free up more space for new libraries. But at the same time, like I want to hold on to them because I paid money for them, right? So it's like, it's a fine balance. But ultimately, I think eventually I'll have to clear them out. So yeah, maybe 20-25% of the libraries I actually use on a regular basis. But anyway, let me know what you think about this. Like, do you agree with me? Do you think that these 5 things are good indicators for buying a library? Or can you think of an extra one that I didn't really mention here that you think might be even more important to consider when buying a library? Let me know. I'd love to know in a comment below. And if you don't have it yet, again, my sample library buyer's guide is down in the box below if you're curious about my personal recommendations. Again, the ones that I like to use regularly. It's all condensed into one easy to read guide, absolutely free, and it's my gift to you for watching this video. So thank you so much again. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.